The Future of Teamwork is a Leader production. Subscribe today and never miss an episode.
I'm doing a disservice to people by being too nice. And our leadership culture is too nice, and we're doing a disservice to people. It's not like, oh, we need to be mean. It's no, we need to be kind. And kind is telling people the truth, doing it in a curious way, not making assumptions, giving them the opportunity to improve. But not doing that is actually not nice. It's unkind.
Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast. My name's Dane Groeneveld, and today I'm joined by Jonathan Raymond. Jonathan is the author of Good Authority, and also the founder and CEO of Ren, which I'm excited to dive into today. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dane. Great to be here.
We were just talking pre-show a little bit about, authority, accountability, how that word can have a lot of baggage for, particularly accountability, a lot of baggage for many of us. And then when I was doing some research pre-show, it sounds like Ren, as an AI coach, is helping people have the courage to hold people accountable. So you're really zeroing in there on that accountability realm. How did you come to be kind of finding that work and making this impact right now?
Yeah. Maybe quick backstory on me. So I was really a wanderer for the first couple parts of my life. I was a very unhappy kid. Felt like, the world was a pretty screwed up place. Didn't really find anything that was sort of a natural fit for who I thought I was supposed to be or how I was supposed to be. I ended up in law school, which is like, I think what a lot of wandering people do is like, well, I don't know what else to do. Most of these jobs without a degree kind of suck, and I couldn't make enough money to live. So I ended up going to law school, which was an amazing experience, but really opened me up into kind of big law, big corporate world, big finance, and kind of those worlds. And I thought I was unhappy before, and then I was like really unhappy. I really was just searching, just trying to figure out how to be an authentic human, an authentic man in the world. And the way that it all shook out for me is I kind of dropped out and I started getting headlong into meditation, into yoga, somatic psychotherapy, all manner of, out there things, psychedelics, anything I could get my hands on, because I was just trying to shake myself loose. It's the best way I could describe it. I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And I did that for, kind of the better part of 8-10 years. I was doing like business development in software and renewable energy, different stuff. But I was mostly just trying to figure out who I was and what does it actually mean to be a human being. And things really shifted for me, coming back to the topic of accountability. I had two things happen at the same time. I got my first CEO gig working for a business coaching company. This was back in 2010, 2011. And at the same time, I was working very closely with a psychological spiritual mentor who was very charismatic, had lots of great ideas that I really respected. And it was really the first time in my life that I was held accountable, where I couldn't just do what I wanted to do. Like I really bumped up against my own limits as a leader, as a CEO, as a business person, as a human, as a new, in a new marriage, like basically everywhere I turned, life was like, you suck. Like you need to do something else about who you think you are.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of the door opener for me of like, what does it actually mean to be accountable to oneself? How do I actually show up in the world in a way that is in integrity with my own values? What are those values? And how do I help other people? And that really, we can go through the rest of that, but that's kind of like how I got into this work, was this integration of coaching in the professional world, which I was passionate about and I thought was super interesting, with my background as a spiritual wanderer kind of screw up, and figuring out my own self.
Oh, I love that. And I particularly love that you had the courage to kind of know that where you were wasn't it, and that you were going to go on the journey and find it. Because I think so often leaders, teams, individuals in life, we're fed this diet of like, just determine what you want to be and it all manifest itself, rather than, stop striving and just start sensing your way into what is real and what's energizing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had no capacity to feel my way through life, right? That's my only goal, is to feel my way through life. All I ever learned was how to think my way through life. Yeah. And I was pretty good at it, but thinking your way through life just takes you to really complex dead ends.
Yeah.
right? Feeling your way through life is a totally different thing. And if somebody said to me back then, "Hey, Jonathan, you need to feel your way through life," I would have been like, "You're nuts. I have no idea what you're talking about." But
Yeah.
once you actually, when you actually unpack that and you figure out how to do it, you're like, "Oh my God, how do you live any other way?"
It's awesome. Actually, one of my podcast guests last week shared this quote that was, and I can't reference it appropriately. I'll put it in the show notes. It was, as humans, we're emotional beings that think sometimes. Well, that's
Yeah.
our more natural state, but
Yes.
we're not trusting it.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been trained out of it, right? We've been trained not
Yeah.
to trust that by schools and most parents and most, societal systems and all that.
I think just to put some, it's funny, I'll often get accused of being really woke and a little bit spiritual or loose in some of my thinking as I apply it to teams. And, and so sometimes I think putting a really precise example out there is good. So here's one that I actually processed recently, which is as a young child, probably 6, I got attacked by a dog. And I felt immediate shame because I'd been taught at 6 years old, we were living in a rural area. If a dog comes out barking, stand your ground.
Hmm.
And the reality is, as a 6-year-old human being, all of the chemistry in your body, when that dog comes running at you, tells you to run. So like, it wasn't my fault that I didn't listen to the wisdom of the elders
Right.
to stand my ground. And yet I felt shame around that for a long time. And I
Yeah.
think there's a perfect example, obviously in a child, not in a workplace setting. I wonder if you've got some examples of where emotions and feelings actually can tell us where better to go on the team or as a leader.
Yeah. And if I can just zoom in, I love this, such a rich example that you gave. Like imagine you had somebody, and all of us, right? Whoever's listening to this, like imagine you had an adult with you in that moment who could feel what you were feeling in that moment and help you digest it.
Yes.
And it's like, imagine what world we would be living in if that's what parenting was. But
How
mostly
cool.
when you see parents like with their kids, and this is like if I could change one thing in the world, it's this. You see parents with their kids and they say, "Don't feel that way."
Mm.
But that's how I feel. What do you mean don't feel that way? And
Yeah.
we try to convince kids to not feel something bad, which they're feeling, or to feel something good, which they're not feeling. Like
Yeah.
you're this. It was like you're making shit up
Yeah.
instead of actually just feeling my actual experience. Like I'm a pretty amazing being. Just be with me. I'll figure it out. But we
Yes.
get kids, everybody gets so contorted with like the influences, these huge influences around us. Our brains are not fully developed. And we're like, oh, I guess I'm bad for feeling that way. And then I either have to reject myself, which is no good,
No.
or I have to reject you because you're lying to me.
Yep.
And it's like we put ourselves in these terrible options. So you could tell this is like near and dear to my heart. I mean,
I
I
love
think
it.
that's like the thing that we need to solve as a leadership community really starts with parenting,
Mhm.
which is we need to be able to have parents be strong enough to let your kids feel whatever they're feeling. As long as they don't
Yeah.
act out on it in destructive ways, self-destructive or other destructive, let them feel what they're feeling, be with them, and just know that any ability or any inability that you have to be with them, that's your shit, not theirs.
Yes. Yeah. That's the
And
big
do
one,
that
isn't
work.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is
Uh,
work. I'm glad you called it work because you can sit there and read this or be told it in a conversation, but you really need to go out and practice this as a
yeah.
parent, as a leader, and
Yeah.
get a lot of reps in, which I think
Yeah.
the you've been in and around this space for a long time. My fear of the failings of corporate learning and development or self-help books or wherever it is that it's kind of like, hey, I checked the box. I learned that thing. Now I know it. And going back to your point pre-show, we were talking about like finally crossing that knowing versus doing gap.
Yeah.
The moving into doing is actually the harder part than finding the
Yeah.
knowledge in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, like, my quote unquote sales calls, such as they are, usually comes from somebody reading the book and they say like, "Oh, I loved your book. Accountability is one of my core values." And I say, "Oh, great. Tell me more about that." Doesn't matter. It could be Fortune 100 CEO, small business owner, doesn't matter. And I say,
Yeah.
"Tell me more about that." And they say, "Oh, well, we put it in our values. Everybody learns that accountability." And I said, "Great. That's awesome. Tell me about a situation where accountability happened." And they get very quiet. And I
Yeah.
say, well, and they say, well, what do you mean by that? And I say, well, to me, accountability includes consequences, right? When someone is given the chance to improve or change and they either can't or won't make that change, then there's a consequence to that. Tell me an example in your culture where that happened.
Yes.
Crickets, right? And I said, okay, so it's fine, but accountability is an aspiration in your culture. It's not an actual lived value. Let's change that.
Yeah. I love
And
that.
that's the gap, right? And that's, that's where the difference, whatever the value is, like the one that I tend to focus on is accountability. But whatever that value is, the difference if leaders would just say, hey, it's like, say, well, there's no place for that in our company. I was like, actually, there is, because it's happening all the time. We want there to be no place for that in our company. Now, that's honest,
Yes.
right?
That's far
And
more honest. Yeah.
that's far more honest and say, like, well, what do we have to do to make that aspiration real? Okay, well, then we need to be accountable as leaders, as individuals, as managers, as an organization. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And, I've seen it, I've been in this business for 15 years. I wouldn't say it's the majority, but there's a solid minority of leaders who, once they hear that, they go, oh, okay, what that guy said, like, we need to actually make
Yes.
some changes. I'm being too nice. And it's not that I'm doing a disservice to people by being too nice. And our
Yeah.
leadership culture is too nice and we're doing a disservice to people. It's not like, oh, we need to be mean. It's no, we need to be kind. And kind is telling people the truth, doing it in a curious way, not making assumptions, giving them the opportunity to improve. But not doing that is actually not nice. It's unkind.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I've had some reflections on different teams, different stages of my career where we worked hard and we said we had a culture of accountability, which is where we did what we said we would do. And what we would actually do is we would reward the people who could get the results, and then people who couldn't get the results would disappear. They
Yeah.
wouldn't get any feedback. They wouldn't really get much support. And they may have had wonderful superpowers that we just weren't harnessing, or they may have had different insights on how the work could be done that we weren't exploring, going back to your point on curiosity. So I
Yeah.
think we lost a number of things. I think we lost opportunities for innovation. I think we lost a lot of energy from the team, because when you've got a team that's living in that stress response state to, if I don't hit my numbers this month, I fall down the list and I'll miss the promotion or the incentive trip, or I'll lose my job. That's very draining for teams.
It is. Yeah. And that's really by accident. That's how we invented the accountability dial. So like, I'll just tell you the story. So this is the piece of, kind of knowledge that we're most known for that I speak on a lot. But what happened was, so I was on a call. This was like before I even wrote the book. I was on a call with a CEO, and he said, we were talking about whatever the problems were. It was like a peer group. And he said, well, I have this general manager, this, that, and the other thing. I'm frustrated with this. I'm frustrated with that. And I said, oh, well, you know, have you talked with him about it? Well, no. And, well, whatever. I told him what the goals are or whatever. I said, oh, well, why don't you go and just, try to have an honest conversation with him? Dumb me at the time. I thought like, well, that seems obvious, right? He comes back the next week and he was like, Jonathan, that did not go well. And I was like, well, what happened? He's like, well, I read him the riot act, just like you told me. And I said, whoa. I didn't say read him the riot act. I said, go have an honest conversation. And so what I realized that in that moment, what I needed to do is actually create a framework for leaders, because we get so hot in the head. We get so frustrated. We let it boil over to what I call spontaneous manager combustion, right? It's like we watch it, we pray, we hope, whatever. It doesn't change. And then we lash out in one form or another, sometimes passive, sometimes, not. And so we built this framework of 5 stages. And the first one's the most important one, was what we call the mention, is like, okay, I want you to just raise the issue in a light, curious, short way that does not require a response.
Yeah.
And so we built this methodology, and that, we've seen organizations change just from implementing that one methodology of like, hey, there's actually 5 stages to an accountability conversation. It's not one conversation.
Yeah.
And that it applies different generationally. It applies different peer to peer. There's so much to it. But that was the fundamental thing that I saw in leaders and in myself. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to start small. Just make an observation, ask a curious question, and then let's see what that person is made of. And let's give them the opportunity, that quiet person, whatever it is, or the too loud person. There's always a reason, right? Everybody does everything from love. It
Yeah.
just really misguided. So how do we raise their awareness and help them course correct so that they can be a more effective member and a happier member of the team?
I love that. It's really interesting because that, like mentioned, that curiosity, it's critical because I was listening to a podcast actually with Marcus Buckingham that was talking about so much feedback is grounded in judgment.
Yeah.
And going back to that earlier conversation about our feelings, it's like if we get hit by a manager, the manager you described who reads the riot act, that's all judgment. There's no curiosity. And so we immediately go to a place of shame and fear. And we're not bringing our energy, our insights, our best selves forward to solve the problem then.
Yeah.
We're
And,
kind of hunkering down.
yeah. And most of the time we all, everybody knows this, like most of the time it's a misunderstanding. Most of the
Yeah.
time it's a miscommunication. Most of the time it's a failure of leadership to set clear expectations, which is almost impossible these days with how
Yeah.
quickly the world is changing. So it's like we're set up to fail
Yeah.
by the way we work. But nevertheless, it's rare where you find an employee who has bad intent. It happens, but
Yeah.
almost it's like one time in 10,000 where someone like is intentionally screwing up, trying to make things worse for their colleagues. That's just not reality. Right.
Yes.
Reality is they didn't understand. They weren't given clear instructions. They didn't have proper training. They, they've got stuff going on at home, like whatever it is. And like, if we don't reach out and engage, like one of the things that I wrote about in the book, I said, we don't have an employee engagement problem. That's the wrong framing. We have a manager engagement problem. We don't know how to engage with employees in a way that actually brings them up. And so, but we keep
Yes.
blaming the victim, right? It's like, well, employee engagement is low. Gee, I wonder why that is.
Oh, I love that. And we've actually seen a lot of research come out about how much burnout there is in that middle management layer because they're not being given the tools and the skills to have those conversations. It's a hard role when you've got that many people relying on you for clarity in a chaotic world.
Yeah. I was talking with a guy the other day. He was in one of our workshops and he said, Jonathan, I love all this stuff. I'm really excited to get into this program and use Ren and all that, but let me just tell you my reality. And he said, my day has 2 hours of traffic back and forth to the office, 6 hours of meetings, mostly that I'm called into to give reports and this, that, and the other thing. And then if I have a shred of a few brain cells left, I'm going to try to focus on the reports that I have to give to my boss.
Yeah.
So developing my people, like I hear you, I get it. I know that it's necessary. I know that it's core to my job, but it's honestly fifth.
Yeah.
Right. Now, he's like, I know that's wrong. I know that it shouldn't be that way, but that's my reality. Help me with that. Right. And so that's what we've been focusing on for the last 10 years is like, how do we actually help managers? Because that's their lived reality. They're stuck in the middle of leaders constantly shifting priorities with all of their, features and failures. Employees who want more from work, good for them. They should want, but the managers are caught in the middle, under-resourced, underprepared, underexperienced. Like the list goes on.
It really does. And as a manager, it was funny when you said we don't have an employee engagement issue. I thought you were going to say we have a human engagement issue. I actually much prefer manager engagement because it gives you a real focus for where the investment needs to be. But it makes me think, going back to human engagement, on this whole growing interest and body of work around mattering. I had Zach Mercurio on the show recently, and we were exploring mattering, and he was talking about the skills decay of just humans knowing how to share with each other that, that they're worthy and they're competent in whatever they're doing to help each other. Where does that start to show up if you think about self-esteem, self-efficacy? It's important to us as humans. Where does that show up in your accountability dial? How does the staged approach allow that individual to perhaps not be eroding their sense of self-worth and self-competence?
Yeah, I think it's really central. The central premise of the accountability dial is that people want to be challenged, right? People want to grow. Now, not everyone in every stage needs to be in an intense growth phase. That's not the case. But people are not, there's no hormetic stress in the system. There's all kinds of stress in the corporate system, in the culture system to produce results and metrics, but there's no healthy stress, which is challenging them as humans which actually gives you instant feeling of efficacy, instant feeling of greater locus of control.
Yeah.
And so that's just like we just don't do it at all, like literally at all. And so we're draining everybody's system from that self-esteem because it feels like I'm a part of a machine. My only role here is to produce the number. And leaders and managers have not been trained. There's no model. We don't have a societal framework for it. Oh no, actually you're going to grow through work. I can't tell you how many times I've had like people with, advanced graduate degrees come to me and say, "Hey, Jonathan, the cutting edge of leadership is growth through work, not as an
Yes.
ancillary second end thing." And I said, "Great, who's doing that?" It's like, it's like we've been talking about it for a
Yeah.
fairly long time,
Yeah.
And then I think the other piece that we just have to talk about is AI, because if you want to take a hit to your self-esteem, I mean, I'm a published author. People love
Mhm.
my book. The AI is really good at writing. It's often better than I am at writing. It's
Yeah.
certainly faster. It's much better at organizing thoughts. It's much better at synthesizing data. Now, does it have my particular flair and polish and voice? No, it doesn't. But guess what? It's better than me in many ways. My car is
Mhm.
better than me at driving, right?
Yes.
Claude Code is better than most people at coding. So if you have whatever you think, whatever esteem you have locked up in your cognitive work,
Mhm.
like, I'm sorry, like this thing's better than you at it. If it's better than me and better than you, Dane, it's better than everyone listening to this
Yeah.
at some or a lot of the things that got you this far. So we have to find a new foothold for our self-esteem. Now, this is
Interesting.
an amazing consciousness expansion, world-changing opportunity. Like, I believe this is happening for a reason, and it's the most incredible possibility. And we can either play victim to that and try to like reclaim a past sense of self or find a new one. My money's on finding a new one.
Interesting. Have you got a sense of like from where you're building AI with Ren, from where your work's been with teams, have you got a sense of where that foothold is going to show up from early, themes, trends that you're observing?
Yeah, I think again, you can never say anything with too much confidence with how quickly things are changing.
Yeah.
But I do think so much, like, last night somebody was telling me the number of like software engineering jobs skyrocketing up unexpectedly, and the
Mhm.
number of new business starts skyrocketing up. Well, why? Because we've collapsed the uh, challenge from not taking an idea to a working prototype. Like,
Yeah.
you can do it in a second, right? So that's now become completely easy, right? Building software is completely easy. Building good software, still
Yeah.
very hard. And so I think the skill of taste, uh, philosophy, brand, storytelling, like, I don't think AI is particularly good at those things.
Yeah.
It's great at organizing frameworks and providing synthesis and those kinds of things. But what I've found, which has been really like honestly liberating for me, is I can now go directly through Claude Code and I can manifest an experience that I want our users to have with Ren. And the time to execution is like a day, right?
Wow.
Where it used to be, software development cycle and, months, right? To like, oh, I want to change this feature. I got to have 25 meetings. I got to like, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Now I could just like, I just talk to it and create it, right? So the good side is you can create it. Not the bad side, but like the opportunity is taste and
Yeah.
curiosity
Yeah.
and critical thinking. And to me, the thing that's like ironic, people, it's a kind of a long-winded answer. People's like, "Oh yeah, I need to get good at AI." No, you don't. There's no such thing as getting good at
That's
AI.
just
You need to be.
happening.
It's just a tool. You need to be good at being you.
Yeah.
And the faster you can be good at being you, which is being curious, being a critical thinker, being opening to question your assumptions, coming from love, coming from feeling, you'll be fine at AI. Don't worry about the good at AI part. It's not a
Yeah.
technical challenge, and that's the ultimate irony. This technology is so incredible. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. You're not going to be good at it. You're going to be good at
Yes.
using it, and being good at using it is being good at being human.
Oh, I love that. And there's something really powerful there. I know a lot of companies have been very cautious about how AI is showing up within the walls of their organization, particularly larger companies. But whether it's within your employment in a team or within a team that you're part of outside of work, like I'm part of the rugby coaching group, and we can be building playbooks and doing all sorts of things with AI right now. The fact is that it's becoming very accessible. And I think going back to your growth through work, I'm hoping that if we're all being encouraged to think less about those technical capabilities and more about being good at being ourselves, then there's more appreciation and there's more affirmation that comes with just going out there and letting that kind of emerge. It's exciting.
Yeah. And maybe there's some paradox. I like to speculate on these things, but like my oldest daughter, she's about to graduate from college, double major, poli-sci and art history. She wants to work in the arts, right? And she's young. She's 21. She's going to get a job in a gallery, a museum. And she really enjoy. And I said, it's a great career move, right? Physical experiences, in the real world. Of course, it will be impacted by AI, but someone who cares about art, who can explain it, who can provide context, who can take people on a journey, that's incredible, right? That's an amazing way to think about it. And maybe, right, this whole technological shift gets us off our computers and off of our screens and out into the real world. Maybe what we've been looking at for the last 20 years is just the infrastructure and the guts of the system. And we were never supposed to look at that in the first place. And once AI, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, I don't know, it's probably 10 minutes, right? We're just going to talk to it. And we don't have to sit on our stupid screens anymore.
Yeah.
We can just talk to it and it does whatever we need it to do and we can go live our lives.
Yeah. I love that philosophy, particularly as a surfer, a skier, someone who loves the outdoors. The amount of time I could be just riding my bike to the beach or sitting on a chairlift and contributing to work, but not actually being right in the midst of it. It would be very energizing.
And there is one thing that I want to make sure we don't miss, which is right now, I mean, I'm already doing it. You may be doing it. Listeners may be doing it. We are already shifting to a world where we're managing agents at least as much as we're managing people.
Yes.
Right. And there are skills associated with managing agents, some of which translate to managing people. I don't think the role of manager is going away anytime soon. I don't think the role of leader is going away anytime soon. But there is a reality where, a lot of our organizations are technical organizations. And, if you're an engineering leader, you're managing multiple agents. You might be managing 100 agents and 6 humans running multiple tasks, and the coordination and being able to be meta to that and understanding the architecture, not just technically, but over the team. Those are incredible leadership skills, to be developed. But work is changing. And so we're going to have to get used to having agents as teammates. Right?
Yes.
And agents who go off and do stuff for us. And, I think the teams that embrace that will do well. And it's work. It's work to embrace it because it can be scary. For some people, it's not, I have other fears. This isn't one of them. For me, it's hey, bring it on. I'm always pushing people to say, hey, what can we do with this? But for a lot of people, it's really scary. And I respect that. They have different, the people are different than I am. But leaders and teams have to make space for that. You can't just force it on people hey, you must use these AI tools, because they won't use them properly and you won't get the value you're actually looking for.
Oh, I love that. As you, and maybe this is the right time to jump into Ren, or maybe we've got one more question there. As you think about holding an agent accountable and holding a person accountable, how do they potentially differ?
Agents don't have emotional baggage for the most part, right? They don't have a problematic father from their past who never listened to them, or a mother who listened to them too much, or a soccer coach who was too tough. So they don't have that. Generally speaking, maybe they will, right? Maybe they'll get,
I'm
maybe
going to develop
childhood wounding,
baggage AI,
right? With childhood wounding and see it. But so mostly it's they can operate objectively to a situation. But what I would say is that obviously we've all seen that they can be very agreeable. So, maybe employees can be too resistant. Maybe AI can be too agreeable is maybe one thing, at least at first. Some employees are too agreeable. I think there's a speed of execution that can be problematic when managing AI, is that it's the first tool ever where your execution can get ahead of your strategy.
I've found that. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what's your experience of that? Because I think that, that's probably something people really should pay attention to.
A great example that just came up this morning. I was working with the team on a new product. They started cycling through some names and we put it into AI. And the AI not only gave us feedback on the product name and defensibility, should we choose to trademark it, it started giving us other ideas on how we weave into our other products. And now all of a sudden we're solving problems that are ahead of us rather
That's
than
right.
where our feet are. And it causes a great deal of consternation and pause and like, oh, we hadn't thought about that. Do we need to stop?
Yeah.
Rather than my old world, we would have just launched that thing and found it out along the way and
Yeah.
reacted appropriately.
Yeah, I think, in many ways, the AI agents are like Enneagram 7s, right? Distracted by the shiny object. Like, hey, what if we did this? Can I help you with that? They're like that
Totally.
kind of helpful Enneagram 7 who's like amazing ideas. Like, oh, I didn't even think of that. But actually, no. Like we don't, but their business model is based on you consuming more tokens. And the way you consume more tokens is by saying yes to the next task, right? And
So that's
the
why they're
discipline,
always feeding it to you at the end of
yeah,
what you just asked for.
yeah, would you like me to do this? And you're like, it's very tempting, right? Because you're like, kind of. I was like, and so it's hard, like, you have to maintain a discipline. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
Not yet. Park it, Susie. Like, we'll come back to that in a month. I don't need that yet. But the tools are not designed that way. The tools are designed, they're not designed in a methodical, like the way a product manager would go, okay, here's the sequence. Once we get here, then we're going to evaluate that. Like, they're not designed that way. And I think you're seeing a lot of people develop skills, like Claude Code skills, for example, like orchestration. So they're actually putting in guardrails and sequences, because if you let it run, it'll rebuild your entire business, in a day. But maybe that's useful, but most of the time it's probably too quick.
Yeah, I get that. And it's interesting because as you share that, particularly the offering to do more work and more work, it brings me back to a tool that I've used from systems leadership theory. So it's a task assignment. And one of the really important things in setting out a task appropriately so you can hold people accountable is that you set the context and the purpose. So I would imagine that's important with a human, but it's also important with an agent, because if you set the context and the purpose, we're launching this, it needs to be in customers' hands in 4 weeks. We cannot stop to think about things like trademark because it's too early. If you give it more of that context, it's less likely to take you down that garden path.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's other ways you can play with it, which are fun. Like, for example, with Ren, one of the things that I did is I said, okay, we get gotten to a certain sort of happy place of what we wanted with our V2 of the product. So I took our ICP and I said, and I gave Claude and I said, okay, here's our ICP. I want you to go through the app experience as our ideal user.
Wow.
And compile a list of feedback. What experiences were good? Where did you get confused? So you can tell the agent to show up as different people. Now show up as an investor, show up as a, stressed out, whatever, or like show up as whatever. And so, but whatever context you give it, it will dutifully take you up on that offer. But if you don't say, here's how I want you to look at it, it's just going to proceed.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. Cool. All right. Well, let's jump into Ren then. So I love this concept of courage to hold people accountable. I've used a few different AI coaches that give me, I look at it as 2 things. Some of them give me illumination. Hey, this is what might be going on. And then some of them give me reinforcement. This is how you do this activity. But are you combining the two? Is there a different view on how you give people that courage to be doing the accountability conversations in real time?
Yeah. So what we did, we've been at this for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did really since early 2024 was we tried to take the corpus of work that we had been doing in manager training and coaching programs, for companies large and small. We said, okay, what are the essential components of our curriculum? How do we encode the AI at a conversational level to hit what we think are the magic moments? Like, what are those moments where a leader goes like, oh, wow, I never would have thought about it that way, or I wouldn't have approached it in that way. And so we did this through, various tools, different orchestration layers, we can get into all the technical parts of it. But essentially what we developed is a coaching brain in Ren that is really just a system of guardrails and constraints that takes the basic experience of what a chatbot that everybody's familiar with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and it basically gives it a bunch of don't do this, right? Like, and
Yeah.
it basically says like, when a user asks this, don't give this answer, ask this question until they
Uh,
give you. So there's a whole sort of cascade of rules, do's and don'ts that we've given Ren based on our experience and based on our coaching programs to say, here's how you get a user to an actual coaching insight.
yeah.
If they were in the room with Jonathan or a coach that Jonathan has trained, here's what that experience would be like. And so it's really about a lot of it's less about telling it what to do and more about telling it what not to do.
Brilliant.
And we've had really, really good success to the point where we ran a huge study a couple months ago, compared it to Gemini, ChatGPT, and even Claude, which is our favorite model. A lot of our work is based on Claude. All the major models, Copilot. And we said, because we knew it was different, but we were trying, in our marketing, like, how do we tell people? One of the biggest questions, how is this different than ChatGPT?
Yeah.
It's actually coaching, right? It's actually tough on you. It's not going to give you the easy answer. It's going to ask you more questions. It's going to use the accountability dial on you. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Instead of just saying like, Dane, that sounds like an amazing idea. Or like, let me help you get ready for this, whatever. Like, it's going to gather information and context. And at the beginning, it's better now, but at the beginning it was really pissing our users off because they were like, it's so annoying. Why doesn't it just give me the answer? I was like, have you ever been in a coaching conversation? Do they tend to give you answers to your questions? No, they do not.
No.
Right. And it's like, but getting people accustomed to like, oh, okay, this is not a chat bot that just gives me answers and just creates, that's a different thing. That's a productivity tool. Those tools are absolutely incredible at that. And Ren is not designed for that. Ren's not a productivity tool. It's a human growth tool. And it's built on a fundamentally different algorithm.
That's neat. So I've done the hard work then on Ren. I've put in my situation. We've gone on this journey of discovery, and we're starting to land on what might be happening, how I might approach a conversation. How does it then help me go forward and do the reps of having that conversation?
So this is launching as we speak, depending upon when this will air. It's gotten something major just happened is it's no longer waiting for you to give it input. It's now in Slack, in Teams, listening to channels, listening to with permission, right? Just like you would add an app to Slack or Teams or whatever. And Ren is passively monitoring the conversation and then surfacing coaching moments to you, saying, hey, I was listening in on the engineering channel. I was listening in the sales channel. Here's something that I think we should chat about. So you don't actually have to think about, you can, if you have something that you know you need coaching on, great, that's amazing. But a lot of times people don't know it's like people go to therapy, they're like, well, I don't even know what I would work on. I was like, trust me, there's a lot, right? Like, like, but they don't know where to start, right? And so Ren says, hey, how about we start here? So the way the flywheel works is Ren monitors those conversations, is looking for coaching opportunities from our perspective, surfacing them to you. You're chatting with Ren, and then it says, okay, great. Here's a draft of a conversation that you might have with Tony. How does this sound? How do we put it in your own voice? Great. And then it gives you the option to send it right back through Teams or Slack or whatever messaging platform. So it's watching you work. It's coaching you based on things that are actually happening, and then it's giving you things to go back and do.
I've been using one AI coach, which happens to spot where my opportunities are, but it's not doing that second piece. So it'll say, hey, Dane, you're in this conversation with Jenny, and when she said this, rather than asking a couple more questions, you were like, oh, that's cool. Here's an easy way to fix it. And you kind of squashed her a bit. And you missed the opportunity to learn more about the actual context. And then it will also give me the second piece of feedback. Once you got to the end of the meeting, you had a bunch of good ideas, but you didn't create any clarity around who's responsible for doing what by when.
Nice.
So it tells me those two things, super helpful, but it doesn't actually then put me into a process to execute on the advice. And so I now get to go deeper. So I basically get the same feedback 5 times a week.
Right. And that's the thing is like, it's one thing to surface the feedback. Those AI tools have been around forever. Like, hey, you spoke 32% of the time in the meeting. Good leaders only speak 26%, whatever it is, right? It's like, okay, well, why does that matter? And how does that matter to me? And what do I do with that information? That's where the coaching comes in, right? So, but it's got to all be in one flow where it's like, okay, well, why does Dane do that? what is behind that tendency. Now we're
Uh,
talking about actual coaching. Oh, well, I do that because X, Y, and Z. Oh, well, how did you form that belief? Who taught you to be that way? What's the upside of doing that? That's where the coaching is, which has to follow from the just the insight. Oh, hey, Dane, you didn't provide clarity. Cool. So who cares? So what, right? Like
yeah,
how
yeah.
you got to connect that to my human heart and my own lived experience for it to matter to me. And then we say, okay, well, now that we've done some work, how about we try something new?
Love that. That's super cool. And that now you've really joined the dots for me there, Jonathan, because I made a joke. I was on stage at Transform last year and I said, my therapist feels like my business coach and my business coach feels like my therapist right now. Like those worlds were just clashing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and what I've definitely learned through both of those journeys is that if I can get back into the rewiring, sort of the stories that are shaping the stories inside my mind that are shaping those behaviors, um, then I can actually create more sustainable outcomes and
Yeah.
results. Whereas if it's just a task that I know I have to end a meeting with, it's easy to because I'm not feeling the need to do it, I'm
That's right.
thinking the need to do it, it disappears or
And
it
then
lasts 4 weeks.
exactly. And then that comes back to what we talked about earlier, which is like, then we're doing growth through work. If it actually
Yes.
connects into who you are and what
Yeah.
matters to you and why you became the person that you are and who do you want to be in the future, well, now we're actually doing growth through work, not
Yeah.
as a evening workshop or a seminar with whoever that inspires you. And then you go back to work and you do the same shit over and over again.
Yeah, totally. That's super cool. Um, as products like Ren continue to become more pronounced prolific in teams, how do you envisage a team member, or in particular a leader, sharing their story of what they've been coached on by Ren?
Really, I mean, so they can do that today. They can say, "Hey, Ren, I want to have a meeting with my team, and I want to talk about what I'm learning." And Ren will
Mm,
prepare them for that conversation. So
cool.
that's one way to do it. The other thing, which I think one of the features I'm really excited about, which we have not released yet, is essentially a coach view in the portal.
Right.
So Ren can actually. It's ironic. The way that I started this whole product was coaching is really, really difficult to scale.
Mm,
Coaching, it can be very, very valuable, but wouldn't it be great if when I was going into a coaching session with a CEO, I got a debrief from an AI that said, hey, here's what this person has been working on for the last 2 weeks. Here are the conversations that they had. Here's what they
yeah.
tried. Here's the assignment you gave them, and here's how it went. And then I was prepared for that
Yeah.
conversation. So I don't have to spend 20 minutes
Getting
asking
caught up.
questions, getting to caught up. Like now
Yeah.
that whatever they're paying me $1,000 for that hour, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, like now all of a sudden that could be a super high value moment. So what I would say is like, one is Ren can do that now, but I also think there's a role for coaches and good advisors is like, here's how to talk about your experience.
Yeah.
Because even with the best AI tools, I saw something the other day that like CEOs are making a lot of decisions to be AI forward, but they themselves are not using AI that much, which
Yes.
I think is interesting and ironic. And so I think there's a role there for explaining to leaders how to use these tools. And that's a lot of the work that, frankly, I've been doing is sitting next to clients, to CEOs that are clients, and being like, "Hey, here's what this looks like. Here's how to think about it. Don't let the AI be your spokesperson, but you can certainly share your experiences in some powerful ways." And so, I think it's a really interesting new terrain for like leadership advisors, people who do culture work. Ultimately,
Yeah.
it comes down to change management, right? Which is a very human thing. Like the AI is not going to solve change management for you.
Yeah. I love that. Um, It actually ties in. I was working with Dr. Andre Martin on some 5 performance management or feedback myths. And one of them was um, when a leader says, I ask for feedback often. It was like, to your point on using AI, I ask my teams to use AI. If you don't show them that you're using the AI, or in the case of feedback, that you don't show them that this is the feedback I got and here's how I've changed my action, it's hard to get the whole team to move. So I
Yeah.
love that concept of using Ren or other tooling to kind of come back as a leader and say to the team, here's the work, here's my growth through work, and hopefully you guys are seeing it, and I want you
Yeah.
guys to be finding it too.
Yeah, I know whenever anyone asks me for like, how I want to ask my team for feedback, I'm like, please don't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if you don't know 10 pieces of feedback that they've already given you that you haven't acted on, you're an idiot and you're not an idiot. So
yeah,
tell me what three of them are, go make a change and then tell them about the change that you made. Then you'll
yeah.
get more feedback.
Yeah, that's it. The other thing I've found with AI, which I'd love your opinion on there, Jonathan, is it's particularly Claude. It's great at roasting me as a leader. And I find that using humor, particularly coming from Australia, where we're really good at self depreciating humor
Yeah,
or defecating humor, the reality is that that can actually lighten the tone a bit with the team when they
totally.
hear that, hey, Dane's the guy who is going to be chasing the bright and shiny objects, and you know 5 out of 10 of his ideas are going to be miserable. So you
Yeah.
really need to be responsible for holding him accountable to the good ones and getting rid of the bad ones quickly. Like
Yeah.
it just opens the whole aperture for the whole team to play.
Yeah, I think that like anything you can do to minimize the authority projection
Yeah,
and to like decrease the slope of authority in your organization is good
yeah,
as a general rule. For some leaders, they need to increase it, right? If they're too friendly, too warm, too cozy with their team, they may need to increase that slope a little bit.
yeah,
But and sometimes it's both, but there's a, if you can't make fun of yourself, you can't be lighthearted. And if Claude helps you do that or any of these tools help you do it, like that's amazing. I always, it's often joke with leaders. It's like, hey, what's your blind spot as a leader? Or like, if someone was really going to pry and like, oh, Jonathan's bad at this and he does
yeah,
this and whatever, and they'll tell me they know what it is. And I said, do you think your team already knows that? Of course they do, right? So
yeah,
the only thing is, the only problem is they know it, you know it, but you haven't told them that you know it. That's the only difference.
yeah, yeah.
So just tell them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and return to it. Like I think it's healthy to go back to repetitions. Like one time isn't enough. One of my coaches always said, when you land on something that's important to the team, you've got to act in a big way. So
Yeah,
you don't just talk about it once, you talk about it 7 times until
yeah,
they're glad you're going blue in the face, and they know very clearly that it's safe for them to challenge you on that blind spot, weakness, or
yeah.
growth opportunity.
Yeah,
That's
and that's
neat.
when you know you're leading well, when people feel free to openly disagree with you. That's
Yes.
when you know you're like things are going well. When someone's like, I don't see it that way. Not in a hostile, rude way, but just like, I don't see it that way. I think we're missing this opportunity over here. Like when you see that, that's a really good marker that you have
Yeah.
psychological safety on your team.
Super cool. Well, it's been an awesome conversation. I loved how you explained the beginning of your story, kind of feeling your way through life, um, and having that courage to kind of go on the journey of discovery. I particularly love this concept about feelings and separating having the feelings from the actions, particularly as parents, but also as leaders and team members. And then as we got into the accountability dial. We actually use that in our team. I think that mention opportunity is
Mm.
a great way to start. I love that it gets you out of the spontaneous combustion mode as a leader, because I've felt that many times. And I particularly love that the premise there, as you shared, is about people wanting to be challenged. I think that ties heavily to mattering, as we touched on. And healthy stress. I mean, my whole thing right now is healthy teams. So I love that you
Mm.
introduced healthy stress. I think that's super powerful. And then, moving on to the latter part of this conversation, the new foothold for team
Mm.
members, for leaders, being around taste and being good at being you is highly encouraging. So many different reasons to be grateful for the conversation, but
Mm.
also excited for diving into Ren and where this
Mm.
work's going to continue to go. How might our listeners find more on your book, on Ren, and any
Oh,
of your
for sure.
other work?
Yeah, so you can go to tryren.com. We have a 7-day trial. You don't have to put in a credit card. You can go in there, add some teammates, and start to play around. So that's the
Cool.
easiest way to try Ren. And then on my personal site, it's at jonathanraymond.com. You can learn more about kind of the speaking I do, the book, Good Authority, still going strong, 10 years in, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So between those two places, the book's available everywhere, but between tryren.com and jonathanraymond.com, just join the newsletter and, keep in touch, drop me a line. Would love to know that you listened to this show. And if it sparked a question, just let me know. The beauty of AI is that I can I can be so direct with people. It's so nice, because I can just like declutter my world. I have all these Claude Code skills running that are like keeping me so organized. It's lovely.
That's awesome. Well, I look forward to catching up in person soon too. We're actually just opening a new space in San Clemente, getting back to in real life.
Oh, cool. Great.
Learning and co-working and collaborating. So we'll have to do an evening up here sometime soon.
Yeah, I'm long overdue for a subsurf session at Cotton's also.
Yeah.
That's a great spot. I knew a guy who lived over there. That's like one of my favorite spots. I just never make it up there.
Cool, man. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Jonathan.
Thank you. Bye.
Just a quick note before we go. The views and opinions shared in this episode are those of our guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host, Dane Groeneveld, the Leader Group, our patron Huddle 3, or our partners and affiliates. Any scenarios discussed are for the purpose of fueling creative thinking and conversation, and should be viewed only in this context. Dane, Leader, our sponsors, partners, and affiliates do not endorse any guest or any organization they may be associated with. It's important to remember that every workplace is as individual as the people within it. Our recommendation is to always seek solutions that are specifically designed to help serve your team's unique needs. And to this point, please know we're here, ready to help you find the best way forward, no matter where your starting point is. You can connect with Dane or myself, Alicia McCraw, on LinkedIn or via the links contained in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. And hey, if you think someone in your network would benefit from this episode, feel free to share it or give us a 5-star rating. Those 5 little stars really help us reach more curious people like you. We'll catch you next time on The Future of Teamwork.